Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Augusto Cesar de Stura Latosa, a faculty from the Department of Communication. Welcome to our Pre-Employment Preparation Talk webinar series, also known as PEP Talk. PEP Talk is a regular virtual series designed to prepare the graduating students for employment by equipping them with the necessary knowledge through talks, touching on various topics delivered by industry experts and professionals. Today's webinar is being live streamed via Microsoft Teams. It will also be recorded and uploaded at the Far Eastern University Facebook page later, as well as at the Career and Placement official Facebook page. Please submit your comments and questions anytime at our conversation page, which can be found at the right side of your screen if you're using a desktop, or to the live Q&A tab if you're using a mobile phone or other portable device. For today's topic, it is called Getting by the New Normal, Adapting to the New Work Setup. Dear guests, I would like to remind everyone to please make sure that your microphones are on mute, especially during the lecture proper, to avoid causing unnecessary noise. Thank you for your cooperation and enjoy the program. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, may I call on the Director of the Career and Placement Office to give the opening remarks. Please let us all welcome Ms. Maria Carmencita Babes Suva Alfonso. Ma'am, the screen is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Latosa. Sir Dennis Supetran, our Senior Vice President, Maria Teresa Trinidad Pino, our Vice President, Sir Joven Castro, our deans who are here, some faculty members, of course, our dear students and co-employees. Good afternoon, and thank you for taking a time out of your busy schedule to join us today. The recent academic year showed us a preview of how things will be even after the pandemic, where many might be able to cope with easily, while some may endure hardships. And as we shift to a new paradigm, adapting to this so-called new normal will largely depend on how prepared we are, especially our graduates. With this, the FEU Career and Placement Office, or CAPO, has designed a 13-part series webinar to give the students the basics of working and finding a job amidst the new normal. We have also prepared and migrated online all other CAPO activities designed to help prepare our graduating students for the new world of work. Online mock interview and coaching, online exclusive recruitment, student exposure to industries, to name a few. We shall be posting all this in the official FEU social media sites and Canvas, so please check out our event posters and calendars. For our premier episode titled Getting By with the New Normal, we are grateful to be joined by two distinguished gentlemen who will talk about the policies of the government for worker safety, as well as how employee development will be in this new work setup from the private sector. CAPO believes these issues are among the first that should be discussed to give the students a better perspective of the world they are facing, one that is no longer the same as it was a few months back. And while it is not going to be easy to sort out the challenges in this new paradigm that we are in, always remember the mantra, our mantra, be brave, because Tamaraws have always been resilient to whatever comes our way. And now, without further ado, allow me to introduce our first speaker. He has a Bachelor of Science degree in Psychology from Ateneo de Manila University and brings with him over 17 years of experience in supporting the learning and development needs of organizations across levels. Prior to joining Ernst Young Global, he worked with GP Strategies as the Leadership and Management Training Manager for East Asia and in HSBC Global Service Centers. partnering with the various senior leaders in 7 countries to drive leadership development. He is also a certified facilitator for Situational Leadership 2 program from the Ken Blanchard companies as well as the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator MBTI program from CPP. Please welcome Mr. Dennis Supetran.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much. And again, my sincere thanks for the entire FEU leadership. I believe Ms. Carmencita mentioned the dean. I also wanted to say, give my thanks to the FEU placement officers for giving me this, unique opportunity to help share what has been the journey for EYGDS Philippines, and hopefully set the expectations as well for a lot of your upcoming graduates that are about to come in or join the Philippine workforce under the new normal. I also wanted to say thank you so much. Having our esteemed Secretary Karlo Nograles join me as part of the panel and one of the speakers for today, and also for Dr. Augusto Latosa as the moderator. Now, for EY Philippines, I think, with a lot of the companies in the private sector nowadays, we really truly live in extraordinary times. And so the challenge is not just, how do we get by, but more importantly, and what has been a personal message for the whole talent team, of which I lead the talent development or the learning aspect of it, has been how do we ensure that we set up our employees, our staff, and our leaders for continued success, and how do we ensure that they don't just get by, but rather how do they thrive. Raven, can you please go ahead and go to the next slide? Now, one of the key things that has been, and this was even actually prior the COVID-19 health pandemic happening globally, one of the key things that we set for ourselves as an organization is really asking ourselves, will our mindset take us further than our skill set? And I think this is also just as appropriate and just as applicable now than ever. Because of the circumstances we find ourselves in, we have to face the reality that very few of us, if we still have some of our very lucky and very esteemed seniors who may have gone through the initial first pandemic in the 1920s, right? Or even the previous health pandemics that we've had in the past. But that really represents a very small minority of the population. And so all of us, whether it's the private sector, government, even private citizens the world over, we find ourselves in circumstances that none of us are fully prepared for. And so when we think about how we look at things, how do we analyze, what are some of the values and ethics that we hold to, those become as important as a guide, aside from the directions we get from our experts in the industry, whether it's in healthcare or in the sciences, and also directions that we get from the government. It's our own personal mindset, our own personal set of values that will help us, thrive and be successful in this new normal. Please go ahead and go to the next slide. So for EYGDS Philippines, we've been very fortunate enough that we don't exist in a vacuum. We exist in a global organization, and part of the immediate organization that we fall under is actually scattered or centered across 5 different locations. And you can see here that these locations span the entire globe, starting from Argentina that covers the Americas region, Poland and India that covers our European and also our East Asia region. And then you have our China and Philippine offices that cover our APAC region. And being able to connect daily, whether it's through technology, whether it's through phone calls, video calls, has really allowed us to respond to the new normal or the health pandemic, not just as in an isolated situation or circumstance, but rather from a global perspective. And I think that was one of our key takeaways in adjusting or in making adjustments to the please go ahead and go to the next slide. Right, Raven, may I ask you to proceed to the next? So aside from our GTS network, one of the things, let me go ahead. Can we proceed to the next slide? All right. So while we're waiting for the next slide to come up, I just wanted to talk about, Ernst and Young. Ernst and Young is one of the big four global professional service firms in the globe. Part of which that we find ourselves, we have uh, Deloitte, we have PwC, and we have KPMG. Of the global four professional services firms, we've been very fortunate enough that our value set, our vision for us as an organization has served us in good stead. Please go ahead and keep on until all of the points are up. Right then. We've been very fortunate in that even in the past 3 years, we've been successfully and consecutively nominated as one of the most attractive employers in the world. And the survey was actually done by Universal. This is a global organization that surveys various organizations from various industries. And again, just the global setup that we've enjoyed in EY really has helped set the stage how we wanted, and it with the sweeping lockdowns that we've had across our different locations, whether it was for our Americas locations in Argentina to our European locations for Poland and India, and then our Asia locations, of which our China offices were one of the first locations that we had that had, right? Um, One of the things that I can share for the students and also for the faculty is that when we talk about getting by the new normal, I guess the target really isn't just to get by, but how do we ensure that we thrive? And so I wanted to just focus on three key things, three tips to help us thrive in the new work setup. So first off is prepare your remote workspace. A lot of the companies and a lot of the directions, like for example, our most recent IATF guidelines that was set for GCQ, the direction has been for most of the private companies to not have more than 40% or 50% of the workforce to be back in offices. In Y in particular, what we're targeting is around at any given point in time with rotations, with shifts, and with the various teams, we're looking at no more than 40% of our total workforce. So that presents a good challenge because having a properly set up workspace is going to be so important for everyone to be successful because we've had with our teams when we initially had them start their remote work during the first weeks of March was that a lot of them did not have their remote workspace properly set up, and this resulted in lost time activity in terms of whether it's fatigue. That was a result of again how the ergonomics was set up in their remote workspace, whether it was the lack of equipment, right? And so preparing the remote workspace for the graduating class right now is also important. You may be, coming into an industry or coming into a company might require you to work full time. However, with the new have to be able to also prepare your remote workspace for that possible eventuality. Second tip that I can share would be look for companies that have strong and deeply rooted values. And part of this has also been with my 17-year experience with various international organizations. Companies that have strong and deeply rooted values tend to be able to make the right decisions that make sense and have, show a strong sense of empathy for the staff and the people that work with them. And I can prove it with my previous organization, HSBC, when we had or we went when we went through the global financial crisis, and of course now with EY, that we're going through the COVID-19 health pandemic. And the third tip that I wanted to share, and we'll go through each one in detail in a little bit, is really even as you graduate, and I know some of you may already have, study fatigue, right? Being in a formal education for so long. Some of us have been in formal education space 18 years or more of our entire, first half of our life. But even as you graduate, I encourage and I challenge each and every one of you students to continue to study, read, discuss, whether it's on online forums, professional organizations that you're now joining. Discuss about the future of work in your field, because it's only by exposing yourself with not just the company or the organization that you join in, but more importantly, keeping an eye on what's happening globally, what's happening from an industry perspective. That is going to help set you up for success. So those are the top three tips that I can share. We'll go through each one in turn. Let me go ahead on the first one. Raven, can you go ahead and click on the first next slide? So when we talk about remote workspace, when we initially started work work setup, when we did our first enhanced community quarantine back in March 16, EYGDS was very fortunate enough that when we had our set, a large part of the organization, though we are registered and the current PESA guidelines require majority of the work to be done on site with our PESA station. Because we are a professional services firm and we work with various clients across different industries, whether it's energy, whether it's government, whether it's private, locally here or across the Asia Pacific region, we've had most of like 100% of our workforce are issued laptops, and this really reflects the nature of really is we don't have any set desk stations. So what happens, I may be one day and I find myself with another team on a separate floor, I can book my workspace near the team. So it's, again, even prior to COVID-19 health and the subsequent announcement, we were already set up to be able to work remotely and flexibly, depending on the requirements of our client engagement. But as we, progressed with enhanced community quarantine, a large percentage of our workforce was also reporting some issues in terms of health. And when we took a closer look at that, a large part of it really echoed, global studies. So, for example, the slide that we have in front of you, this was a study conducted by the American Osteopathic Association. Most common areas, and this is usually in so you have the neck, wrist, shoulder, and these usually result from an that's why a large part of the previous paradigm that we had was offices are set up to be more or less ergonomic, right? But as we go into the new normal, where government requirements may require private industries or even our government-led offices to have a smaller amount of workforce to be on site, and a greater or a lesser amount of the workforce to be working from remote locations. And I use the term remote locations because some of you may, in your future endeavors or future careers, find yourself working from your family home, or it could be because of circumstances or even ease of access. You might be renting, an apartment or a nearby workspace, your office, to save on costs. But whatever the case may be, you need to take closer consideration how you set up your remote workspace. Raven, please proceed to the next slide. Now, we started and things that we did starting end of March, all throughout April, May, and as we continue uh, through our GC, and also what happens beyond. One of the key initiatives that we've had in Talent is really listening to what is the situation for our staff and our people. What we've said is that, for you to have an ergonomic setup, it doesn't need to be expensive. And that's why when we share, and I'm just sharing a snippet from our health and wellness projects or health and wellness initiatives, right? Every week we usually focus on an aspect of health and wellness, whether it's financial health, physical health, mental health, right? Um, when we talked about them setting up their workstations, we made it as simple as even with the that you find in front of you. First off, uh, is the seat that you're using, right? Um, is it allowing you to type on your laptop or type if you're using a separate keyboard, allowing you to have your elbows at a 90-degree angle, right? If not, then again, take do you need to transfer to a table that is lower, right? That will allow you to have that elbow and um, less stress on your elbow and your wrist. Side perspective, right? You don't need to necessarily any expensive or even stations that you have that can up and down, right? It could be as simple as putting your laptop on a series of eyesight level, so you doesn't necessarily have to be looking always down or looking too high up. Right? And it's those basic principles that when you think about your workspace, is it in a quiet enough location so that you don't have any stray sound, right? Not a lot of us the luxury of having that remote workspace, that luxury. Are you making sure that you have just those basic principles? And there's more than enough resources on the internet. So I encourage you, think about that. Because even though you don't know what may be your company policy or requirements, it's best to set up your remote workstation already. Right? Please go ahead and proceed to the next slide. Now let me go ahead and go to the second point. And this is something that, again, I strongly believe in and has been, part of the decision-making process that has, served me well throughout my career. When I think about the companies that I've joined, I've been very fortunate enough, and I have been very intentional in terms of the companies that I join. I always make sure that they have a, very strong and deeply rooted values. And like what the reason why this is so important is because as we proceed with the new normal, one of the things that we need to continue expecting is that, we need to expect that more unexpected things may come. The COVID-19 virus is still very much an unknown entity, regardless of, what global updates may show. Because if you look at how various governments, various scientific institutions have been approaching the problem. Number one has been focused and really just looking for something that can help control symptoms, so address the spread of COVID. So there might be other aspects of the virus that may not have been yet investigated. Something for example, the U.S. U.S. CDC has been receiving even something that put it on COVID-19, like having rashes, might be a symptom that is, an indication of COVID-19 infection, and could also be could lead to further health impacts in the future. And so when we think about how that will impact us, and let me bring it back from a local, already with recent IAT in terms of guidelines for our private sector or our government employees, right? We see a lot of changes that really impact us significantly. Whether it's just the extreme reduction in terms of the total capacity for our public transportation network, right? LRT lines, whereas each train might be accommodating 1,100. Right now, based off of the COVID-19 guidelines, it's less than to be train setup. So that affects us personally, and that can potentially impact our ability to deliver on the requirements and to join. And so when we think about companies, those companies that have a strong will the key value is really our people, regardless of any key concept, right? Maybe even business changes. It and our guidelines in addressing or in the COVID-19 health pandemic. By March 16th, and, and you see it again in successive sites, we already were able to shift to have less than 1% of our 1,900 staff to be working on site. So that meant, more than 1,800 people were already working remotely. And for those that did not have internet connections, we made sure to reach out and look at some alternatives, whether it's, using pocket Wi-Fi connections, whether it's, and connection in their area, right? Another key demonstrator for this and how our values has helped us is really how do we transition. So GCQ started June 1st, where it allowed a lot of our private companies and businesses to be able to open up and to allow for people to start working on site again. For EYGDS, because we already have to still continue to keep tempo, we'll continue to have most of our workforce work remotely. Right? Please proceed to the next slide. Next slide, please. All right. So when we think about, again, deeply rooted values, one of the key drivers that we have for EY is really how do we ensure that, people that join us, and this is, something that I strongly believe in, we want them to have that exceptional EY experience. And what does that mean? It really means, whenever you join, however long you stay, we want to make sure that you have that exceptional EY experience that lasts a lifetime. And so please proceed to the next slide. Our focus really has, please keep it there. Our focus really has been how you go through that EY journey. How do you experience your actual workplace and your remote workplace? So most of our most recent health and wellness initiatives have worked on helping teams that are separated by geography. We have team members that are as far north as Baguio and as far south as Zamboanga right now working together. So how do you ensure that those teams feel that they belong and they feel included in those day-to-day decisions? Because when we work from face-to-face office work setup, it's very easy to get people to feel that they belong. But when you have remote work setup, and this is going to be a challenge for most of you, how do you ensure that you have that sense of belonging? Right? because it's only when you focus on that sense of belonging, and this is an offshoot, this is a result of having the right values in place. Only then are you able to capitalize on the diversity of your workforce and making sure that all of the decisions and ideas generated by them are included, are considered. And here you can just see from a business perspective, organizations, EY included, that have focused on that employee experience, right? Um, they enjoy 3.5% innovation, right? From a profit margin perspective, 6 points, 10 points. Those are very good economic indicators of a business's, value proposition. And lastly, from a team collaboration, teams whose members feel that they belong, feel that their diverse experience matters, that efforts are actively made to make them feel included, right, and valued. They feel that they're able to collaborate with the teams 57% more of the time compared to teams that have members feel that they don't belong, feel that their diversity isn't respected, feel that they don't have their viewpoint, their experience and included in those day-to-day business decisions. Right. So please proceed to the next slide. And so I come to the last point, um, which is really when we think about what's going to be happening in the future, regardless of whether you're coming from business management courses, liberal arts, the more that you study, the more that you read, the more that you keep yourself updated of what's happening, both from a local perspective and international. What's happening, in the community, from the social media space, and also from a professional perspective, what's happening with the profession of your field. Because some of you might be in current fields that it's very easy to see how you can do your work remotely. Right? And of course, it would not be sound advice for me to tell you, oh, if you belong in this particular course, right? Because, for example, mechanical engineering, right? Some of that might require you to be on site to service the equipment or to work with the equipment, right? You can't, or there might be less opportunity for you to do that remotely, right? People who are in architecture, yes, the initial planning stage might be done remotely, but how about the actual building itself, right? So you need to have that on-site, presence. So it's not an option for us to go back to university and take up a new course that will allow us. But if you're coming into this new normal with the mindset of how can I, regardless what course you're coming from, what field you want to enter, if you come into that with the mindset of asking what aspect of your work, what part of your career can be done remotely? Are there things that are being done internationally that I can apply locally that can help you? Another thing, and you'll see here that the first two items here is really just questions, because one of the key things that we've had in EY is really, the better the question, the better the answer you're going to get. And if you're able to apply those skills, that knowledge, then the better the world works, right? For example, the first question that you have there is how can you learn more in less time? This has been a guiding principle for us in doing remote interactions with our teams, right? Because when you're working remotely, not all of the time you'll have that luxury of being able to see yourself in video. Let's say some people, because of their internet connectivity, might not be able to support video conferencing, and so we've looked at how can we ensure that we connect with them in less time, but still the takeaways can be more, even greater, right? And the last tip I can share with us is really be flexible. When you think about agile as a work ethic and principle, previously it was found in project management, but more and more organizations nowadays have shown that companies and organizations that are flexible, that take a look at their values, take a look at the situation, and see. how they can adjust, how can they be flexible, and they are agile enough to put in those new measures. Those are companies that are more apt and more, you know, most likely to be more successful compared to their counterparts that may have, very good structures that are set in place. But usually, structures also have, the constraint of you might have a lot of red tape. And so my advice to you for the graduating students really is be flexible, be agile, be curious about what needs to be what you need to get in terms of knowledge, in terms of skills, but more importantly, what will be the most productive mind because your skill set, what you know, what you can do, that changes in time. You can learn it while you're, but that mindset takes a long time to be able to have that correct mindset set in place. And that's why when you take a look at the critical actions, right? 2 weeks after the declaration of ECQ, we're already able to be flexible enough and be agile enough to shift, right? Traditional actions, like for example, onboarding. Um, Most of companies they feel because we want to have those new employees have that power, we want to do those onboarding programs face to face. But given that we were under quarantine restrictions at the time, we were able to come up with a 2 day full-on virtual program for our hires, and we've been getting consistent feedback about 70%, no 80% of all of the new hires have been providing us feedback that it was very engaging, and it made them feel they were really part of EY. And again, we have new hires that were as far north as Baguio and as far south as Zamboanga as well. And so our focus moving forward, both for our talent and operation teams, really has been how do we enable the future of work for all of the teams. And this is making sure that whether it's with the further development of GCQ and subsequent shifts that we have, as we begin to open up more and more of our economic activities, how do we ensure that site and those people working virtually continue to have that exceptional EY experience? How do we continuously feel that they belong, uh, that they are part and they are included, and their diversity is respected? So thank you so much, everyone. I'll be turning the floor over again to our moderator, Dr. Latosa. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Mr. Supetran. I'm sure we did learn about how private companies like Ernst Young are adapting to the new normal. Our dear students, faculty members, and employees, you may send in your comments and questions to our conversation page, which can be found at the right side of your screen if you're using a desktop, or at the live Q&A tab if you're using a mobile device or any portable device, mobile phone rather, or other portable device. And now to introduce our second speaker, may we now call again our Director for Career and Placement Office, Ms. Maria Carmencita Babe Suva Alfonso. Ma'am, the screen is yours.
Hi, thank you, Dr. Latosa and Sir Dennis. We will see you again later at the Q&A segment. For our next speaker, he currently serves as Cabinet Secretary, appointed by President Rodrigo Duterte in November 2018 to head the Office of the Cabinet Secretariat. He ensures close coordination among the different agencies of government, such as DILG, the PWH, DSWD, DOH, and others. Before he was appointed as Cabinet Secretary, he was chair of the House Committee on Appropriations, which approves the national budget for the annual expenses of the government. He also served as a three-term congressman of the 1st District of Davao City. A lawyer by profession, he previously worked for the Nograles law firm in Davao City. He received numerous awards as an outstanding legislator. He received the Golden Globe Awards for Excellence in Public Service in 2015 and 2016, and Outstanding Congressman in 2012 and 2015 by Super Brands Marketing International, to name a few. He is a graduate of Philippine Science High School. He holds a degree in BS Management Engineering from the Ateneo de Manila University and a Juris Doctor from the Ateneo de Manila Law School. He was born and raised in Davao City, the second among four children of Prospero Nograles, the former Speaker of the House of Representatives, and Ma'am Rodora Bendigo Nograles, cousin of President Duterte. As Cabinet Secretary, he is the co-chair of the Interagency Task Force on Emerging Infectious Disease, tasked to formulate and plan and lead all government efforts in addressing the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as preparing the country for post-pandemic recovery. He is also chair of the following committees: the Interagency Task Force on Zero Hunger, National Irrigation Administration, Cabinet Assistance System, and Cabinet Cluster Secretariat. He also authored the Free Higher Education Bill and salary increase for police and AFP personnel, the Green Jobs Act, which encourages the creation of green jobs or jobs that preserve or restore the quality of the environment, Jumpstart Philippines Act, where high school graduates are given opportunities to register and become Jumpstart trainings, to undergo training and have work experience. He also advocated for the Cancer Bill, Universal Health Care Bill, and a bill that aims to have the regular barangay officials receive monthly salaries. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to your screens Secretary Karlo Nograles. The floor is yours, sir.
Maraming salamat sa iyo, Ma'am Maria Carmencita, Babe Suva Alfonso.
Haba.
At thank you very much, Dr. Augustus Cesar Latosa. At sa kapwa kong speaker, kapwa kong guest ngayong araw na ito, si Sir Dennis Supetran. At sa lahat na nakikinig, mga estudyante, mga faculty and staff, and everybody who's listening right now, magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Karangalan ko po, it's my first time actually to be invited by FEU to speak in any activity ng FEU. So I'm very happy and very privileged to be given this opportunity to speak. Actually, may IATF meeting kami ngayon. Umexit lang ako ng sandali. Dahil alam ko napaka-importante po nitong discussion natin ngayong araw na to. Para lalo na para sa ating mga estudyante. I was asked to talk a little bit about government's policies concerning the workplace in the new normal. So maraming salamat muli sa FEU at sa Career and Placement Office sa pagkakataong ito. Medyo Tagalogin ko na ng konti pero pagpasensyahan nyo dahil medyo taga-Davao ako at medyo Bisaya, may konting Bisaya accent yung Tagalog ko. So pagpaumanhin na lang po ninyo. Alam nyo yung medyo usong ngayon kasi, next slide, is yung tinatawag na new normal. So ito yung buzzword ngayon. What is the new normal? Ano ba tong new normal? At narinig nyo to sa mga government agencies, sa mga IATF policies, directives, kahit sa mga chat groups, kahit sa social media, narinig natin itong new normal. But what is new normal really? It's just basically the way na we adapt, in order to continue to protect ourselves and our families, but slowly and surely getting back into the groove of things as far as hanap buhay, livelihood, trabaho, and even schooling is concerned. So maraming pagbabago ang mangyayari dahil dala ng pandemic ng COVID-19 na ito. So syempre maraming uncertainties, lalong-lalo na para sa ating mga kabataan, maraming anxieties, pero marami ring prospects. So I'd like to emphasize na kahit na marami sa atin ang nababahala, isipin din po natin na marami ring opportunities out there. And even companies have to rethink how they do business, how they conduct business, and even yung workplace nagbabago. They have to readjust in order to comply with government's policy na kailangan nakaset up yung minimum health standards natin. So, kung titingnan natin yung lay of the land, may mga kumpanya na matatamaan, pero may mga kumpanya na magbo-boom din. So companies in the logistics industry, in the health industry, in medicine, and even sa online retailers, lalong-lalo na, dito magkakaroon ng shifts, no? Dito magkakaroon na mga negosyo na mabuboom in the time of COVID, kumbaga. So, I'd like to call on our new graduates at yung gagraduate, malapit na mag-graduate, na it's also a time for us to start to prepare, to rethink. Kung ang gobyerno may game plan against COVID-19, dapat lahat po tayo ay may sarili rin po tayong game plan tungkol sa buhay natin. So while you're writing and drafting your resumes and your bio data, isipin din po natin na malamang kapag tayo nagpapa-interview, maging online na rin yung interviews. Yung pagsasabit natin ng mga papers, ng mga bio data and resume will be done online, and even sometimes, perhaps even the tests and assessments na gagawin ng mga kumpanya would be online. Kahit interview, baka online na rin. So I know some fresh graduates or yung mga graduate yung nagpe-prepare na, gumagawa sila ng mga mock interviews na online with their friends. No? So I think that's also very helpful for us to do. Na with your friends, with your barkada, with your closest friend, gagawa tayo ng mga mock interviews para naman alam nyo, kasi iba, kailangan maganda rin ang dating nyo sa mga interviews. No? Pero iba yung face-to-face, iba ang online. So you have to also check kung okay ba yung presence mo online, no? And also phone interviews. Kung hindi naman online, may mga phone interviews din. So you can also practice phone-in interviews now with your friends. Job searching may be a challenge. It may take longer, but a lot of the job searching will be done online. So advantage niyan. Hindi na tulad ng dati na maglalakad ka from one company to the next. So it has its pros, it has its cons, di ba? Dati, nung panahon namin, pupunta kami sa building per building per building, or sasali kami sa mga job fairs. No? Yun ang ginagawa namin noon. Not so long ago. Bata pa naman tayo. But right now, in the time of COVID, gagamitin na ng mga companies yung mga online. A lot of online. So be always on the lookout sa mga hiring notices online. But in the same manner, also check out the websites ng inyong favorite companies or yung gusto nyong applyan, because some job vacancies might be posted also on the websites of the companies, no? And alam naman po natin may mga recruitment agencies who are out there. Just make sure that you go to agencies that are accredited ng government, no? And ibang profile social media tools like LinkedIn is sometimes also helpful, and other social media apps out there that will help you look for a job might also be meaningful sa job search ninyo. Some of the people I know ngayon na medyo challenging ang maghanap ng trabaho, they do volunteer work. Volunteer work is also something na dapat wag niyong snabin. Dahil sometimes, pag nag-volunteer kayo, it opens up a lot of opportunities and also builds your network. So isipin nyo rin, kung wala pang trabaho, you can also volunteer. Next slide. Now, anong konteksto nito? No? The whole context of this new normal, hindi ko na isa-isahin ang mga ito, but siguro ang gusto ko lang i-point out is that COVID-19 drastically changed the whole landscape, no? Everywhere, education, the way government conducts its business, the way industries conduct their business. So talagang binago niya ang lahat. And it created enormous effects on our economy. But you must also understand that it's not just the Philippines, but the entire world, no? The whole world, all countries were hit by COVID-19. So, nagbago yung landscape, nagbago yung behavior ng ating mga people in general, no? And a lot of industries worldwide have adopted already flexible work arrangements, work from home arrangements, reduction in work hours, reduction in work days, rotation of workers, forced leaves, and temporary, even sometimes temporary suspension of operations. So that's the whole context ng background ng where we are now and what the workplace is right now, not only in the Philippines pero worldwide, no? So, next slide. Kami sa gobyerno, alam niyo naman that it's really the IATF that um, that crafts policies, no? We craft policies to guard our people against the ill effects of COVID-19, make sure walang transmission, make sure mabilis ang action ng government. But that's only in the health aspect. Over and above the health aspects, tinitingnan din ng IATF ang iba't ibang aspeto ng panggobyerno, no? Kasama dyan ang economic aspect, social aspect, even the security aspect. At kapag nagde-deliberate yung IATF, tulad ng ginagawa nila ngayon, na wala ako, umalis ako nag-exit na ako ng sandali, is we're talking also about how to help the workforce, no? How to help industries get back on their feet, and how to help yung mga employers and employees. Kasi no one was spared with the effect of COVID-19. So we always talk about how to help rebuild lives, how to help rebuild livelihoods, and how to give jobs, no, to our people. Next slide. In fact, one of the things na fino-focus ngayon ng IATF is this new normal. So meron po kaming ginawang sub-technical working group on anticipatory and forward planning, which is chaired by the NEDA, no? And the National Economic and Development Authority. So NEDA, siya talaga yung pinaka-planner ng buong gobyerno. At isa sa tasks na binigay namin sa NEDA is, sige, planuhin mo nga ano yung new normal. So NEDA was able to come up with this report. It's called the We Recover as One. Kumbaga, playbook of sorts na kung ano ba ang ma-expect natin dito sa new normal. So based on this We Recover as One, it's a very thick book, so I'll just try to summarize it a bit. No? Next slide. Basically, it talks about response, ano ang proper response ng government in all aspects of governance, mitigation, how to mitigate the damage caused by COVID-19 against everything, no? In the all aspects of governance, and pinaka-important is this transition to the new normal. So basically, ang bottom line po dito is, habang wala pa po yung vaccine at habang wala pa po tayong a treatment, no, you have to understand that we have to find two things, no, in order for us to go back to the old normal, or what is normal, no, is number one, we have to find the adequate treatment, and number two is we have to find the vaccine. But until makita natin yan at mahanap natin at makascade natin yung lahat ng yan, kailangan lahat po tayo mag-adjust. So new normal basically means we need to find a set of conditions that will allow social and economic activities to proceed while still observing the rules to limit the transmission of the virus. Okay, napakahaba pero yun po yung pinaka-essence ng sinasabi ng dokumento ng NEDA. So meron po tayong mga minimum expectations, no, when we go into the workplace, or kayo ngayon ay matatapos na sa inyong pag-aaral, naghahanap na kayo ng trabaho. Ano ba ang mafo-foresee natin na reality or the new reality in the workplace as of the moment? Well, unang-una sa lahat, bottom line, meron po tayong mga minimum expectations at itong paulit-ulit na sinasabi ng IATF. The minimum expectations is kailangan nandyan pa rin po yung social distancing. Kahit MGCQ na tayo, kahit GCQ na tayo, MGCQ na tayo, constant pa rin po yung social distancing, constant pa rin po yung strict personal hygiene, constant pa rin po yung sanitation protocols natin, especially in the workplace. At kailangan i-expect din po natin na maaring magkaroon ng mga sporadic lockdowns, pero yung mga lockdown na sinasabi namin, yung mga community quarantine, hindi na yung kasing lawak ng the entire NCR or one whole province. It will now be concentrated, localized na ang lockdowns, no? The provincial governor has the power now to impose community quarantine sa component cities niya. Yung mga mayors now have the power to impose community quarantine sa mga barangay niya, lalo-lalo na sa mga red areas. So yun, magkakaroon ng ganyan klaseng mga bagay, no? Bigla na lang yung barangay na ito nag-lockdown, bigla na lang yung bayan na yun nag-lockdown. So ganun ang pagmamanage natin ng COVID-19. Now, per industry tayo, let's talk about ano expectations natin sa different industries out there. And habang kinekwento ko to sa inyo, lahat naman kayo iba-iba yung background, no? Iba-iba yung inyong courses, iba-ibang mga kurso na kinuha niyo, mga specialty niyo, iba-iba yung mga strengths and weaknesses niyo. So ang gusto kong mangyari habang kinekwento ko itong lahat ng ito, isipin na rin niyo, imagine po ninyo kung where you fit now in this whole new normal way of things in the different industries, no, and sectors of the world of the workplace. So in terms of manufacturing or industries and services, no, so manufacturing muna tayo. Sa sector na manufacturing, I think ang magiging focus natin ngayon will be more on the production of essential goods. Ito yung mga areas kung saan makikita namin magshi-shift, no, ang tide. Dito na papunta yung tide in terms of the production sector. Essential goods, no, like food, medicine, medical and pharmaceutical products. Basta essential goods, I think doon na yung mag-shift kung saan mapupunta yung mga negosyo ngayon, no? And not only the essential goods per se, but yung intermediate inputs. Siyempre, kailangan mo ng inputs to manufacture a product. So, suppliers of intermediate inputs, dyan po makikita natin magkakaroon ng shifts. Dito na medyo magbo-boom na ang negosyo sa mga areas na ito. And of course, supplying of raw materials for these essential goods. Pagdating sa construction, we anticipate na magkakaroon ngayon ng concentration ng construction sa mga vital health facilities, building of quarantine and isolation facilities, or rehabilitating existing or old ones. We also foresee an increase in construction sa rural areas. Habang marami sa ating mga kababayan natatakot na sa mga urban areas dahil masikip, madaling magka-COVID, marami na pong likasan at umuwi sa kanilang mga probinsya or sa kanilang mga rural areas. Lalong-lalo na ngayon na food will be in demand, so agriculture sector might also be a boom, no? Sa service-oriented organizations naman, I think we have to understand na magkaroon na ng mga pagbabago dito. We anticipate na marami na magkakaroon ng flexible work arrangements tulad ng work from home, virtual work offices instead of face-to-face. Even yung workspaces ng ibang service-oriented companies might have to be reconfigured, no, para magkaroon ng social distancing sa bawat workspace. Ganon din ang nakikita namin sa factories. Sa factories, we will see a reconfiguration of the factory floors to see na nagkakaroon na ng number one, a mix or a staggered mix of staggered work hours among different factory workers, 'di ba? Para tuloy-tuloy yung pagpo-produce, hindi nawawala ng tao pero may social distancing pa rin, and then yung dispersion of work spaces. We also expect a lot of hygiene protocols sa mga establishments. So disinfection of areas will be a constant and access to disinfectants. So manotice ninyo, disinfectants ngayon medyo on the rise na ang demand for disinfectants, no? E-commerce is also something that you really have to take a look at. At kung nagsispecialize kayo dito sa field na to, this is very good for you. Because I think e-commerce will be the new normal for a lot of businesses, and I'll talk a lot about that later on. So online transactions, use of cashless payment, and other financial technology platforms. So necessarily, kung kayo ay nag-aaral ng IT or nasa on the BPO or BPM sector, I think magiging maganda ang mga work prospects nyo dito, employment prospects for the IT BPM sector, no? Ngayon, sa transportation sector naman and travel, dito magkakaroon ng siguro less demand for this, no? Sa transportation, for instance, marami na yung magre-reduce na ng um, magre-reduce ng load factor na tinatawag. And of course, lilimitahan na ang transportation from one area to another. So the airline industry will take a hit in this time of COVID-19. Magkakaroon ng travel restrictions, even in the Philippines and going outside of the Philippines. Alam niyo naman yun, no? Many countries will now be more protective of their shores. So the demand for tourism and travels will really go down. And I think the transportation and travel sector really have to adjust. Next slide. Social activities. Pagdating sa social activities, ito nga yung biro ko sa mga kabataan ngayon. What will love be like in the time of COVID? Kasi bawal na itong mga social activities. So there will be a lot of physical distancing, wearing of masks, diba? Using of hand sanitizers, frequent washing of hands, but more importantly, mass gatherings, mawawala na yan. No? Medyo magkakaroon ng limitations na sa mass gathering. So for social activities, nakita ko lang yung picture ng kinakasal. So even right now sa IATF, there's this ongoing debate kung paano yung religious gatherings, paano binyag, paano yung kasal, all of that. So hindi na pwede yung malaking bonggang wedding ngayon. So hindi na pwede rin malaking bonggang baptism ngayon. So all of these things will have to adjust. But sa mass gatherings, sa industry side, alam naman po natin meron tayong tinatawag na MICE, no? The meetings, innovations, convention, and exhibitions. This will really take a negative effect because of COVID-19. So they will have to adjust accordingly or find some other way, perhaps use the digital space, which is like what we're doing now, di ba? Nagle-lecture tayo, pero we're using digital space instead of physical presence. Schools, alam ko FEU is preparing now for the next school year and next semester, and a lot will be focused on online learning. As with many universities, it will be online learning. More challenging for us in government is sa basic education. Kasi marami naman, alam natin, hindi lahat ng kabataan may access to the internet, no? Or has a strong access to the internet, or yung internet nila is, unstable or hindi naman regular, right? So this is an ongoing challenge for us. So siguro pagdating sa Department of Education, we're looking more at blended learning. Meaning to say use of TV and radio will be incorporated in the learning and education mechanisms of DepEd. But for those in the career of teaching, this might be an opportunity for you. Online classes will boom. Use of online, and your market is the world, diba? So you will have the opportunity to provide online teaching and online learning to people from different countries right now. Because ganun hindi lang Pilipinas, kundi ang buong mundo, ganito ang reality. So online teaching might become like yung uso ngayon sa panahon ng COVID. Then, of course, we anticipate an increased demand, obviously, for health services and health workers. Next slide. In terms of technology, there will be greater interest, increased interest now in scientists. Magiging mga sikat na ngayon ng mga scientists as people, as the world tries to look to science to help solve our problems. So advances in the medical field, advances in medical science will be something that all countries will be looking for. So, maging in demand ngayon ng mga scientists, laboratory technicians, all those in the realm of science will be in demand in this time of pandemic. And when I say science, syempre kasama dyan yung technology. So, digital technology will also, the demand for digital technology will increase. So digital technologists, if you're in that field, you will be increasingly sought after. Hahabulin kayo. And when we say digital technology, like I said earlier, online retail, online banking, even online medical consultations, everything will be online. Digital payments have now become a necessity. Dati, convenience yan di ba? You go online banking for convenience para hindi ka nalalabas ng bahay, pumunta ng bangko. But ngayon, it's not anymore a matter of convenience, it's a matter of necessity. Ang medyo sad news na binabantayan namin, especially ng Department of Labor and Employment, is yung manual labor. I think dito medyo tatamaan ang ating mga kababayan, no? mga empleyado. Those in the manual labor field, slowly companies, because they have to adjust and still have to produce a lot, they might look into more of robotics, more of automation, initially to complement manual labor, but siguro as time progresses, kung wala pa tayong vaccines sa COVID-19 and to future-proof their companies, ang challenge is that companies in the production end might start looking at automating their production lines. So medyo it will be a challenge now for manual laborers, no? So we really need to provide them, upskill them, increase their set of skills para hindi sila maging irrelevant sa workforce, no? Next slide. In terms of environment, alam naman po natin medyo nung time ng ECQ wala na masyadong pollution, but now the time ng GCQ at MGCQ mukhang mabalik na naman yung pollution dahil dumadami naman ang kotse sa mga kalsada, and air quality has now started to deteriorate. Pero because people now medyo tend to need to travel or might look for the need to travel, ang binabantayan din namin na baka nag-increase din ang sales for private vehicles and motorcycles, lalo na. No? Lalo-lalo na ngayon, wala nang angkas. So, baka ang direction is magkanya-kanyang motorcycle na lang si mama at si papa, something like that. So, it's something that we're looking at also. No? Next is, let me talk about a little bit about some of the policies that we're focusing on now in government. And while I'm talking about these policies, siguro isipin na rin ninyo, ang mindset ninyo habang nagsasalita nga ako is to look at opportunities also where you can come in as fresh graduates. No? So as we transition to a new normal, syempre marami tayong mga policies and strategies na ginagawa yung gobyerno para tulungan ang ating workforce. Especially you who are coming out of school. No? So one of the things, next slide, one of the sectors na tatamaan or tinamaan talaga ng COVID-19 is the MSMEs. So micro, small, medium enterprises. Ito ngayon ang fino-focus ng gobyerno dahil karamihan ng ating mga negosyo, mga negosyante belong here, the MSMEs. Ilan naman, konting porsyento lang yung nasa large companies or large taxpayers. Majority talaga nasa MSMEs. So to help the MSMEs, government now has to undertake and help MSMEs in their business continuity planning, in giving them capacity building, increasing their digital skills, helping them digitalize their operations, knowledge transfer, information sharing, and even mentoring. Sa bangko naman, what we're trying to do is also trying to encourage banks to relax certain requirements para mas maging accessible ang pag-uutang ng mga MSMEs sa mga bangko. Perhaps even nudging them to suspend the imposition of certain fees and charges, no? Especially lahat ng MSMEs tinamaan ngayon ng COVID-19, to help MSMEs reestablish their cash flow. We try to encourage more debt relief programs for MSMEs. We try to nudge and help the real estate lessors and financial institutions to also extend grace periods. And the need, of course, the bottom line is to build resilience of MSMEs through capacity building. Next slide. Sa retail and e-commerce, pabalik-balik, kung sasabihin ito, no, I cannot overemphasize enough the importance of e-commerce in this new normal. No? But government now is concentrating on obviously increasing the speed and the security and structure of the internet, basically. So, importante, no, na this will be the new infrastructure now. Hindi na, parang pasay na yung mga kalsada ngayon pagdating sa infrastructure. The new infrastructure now will be the highway, the internet highway. Kaya kailangan i-push natin yung increasing of speed but also protecting cybersecurity. No? Sa pagkain naman, I think we also have to use technology to be able to help bring agricultural products to the market. So some of the focus ng government now is to push for more satellite markets. And when I say satellite markets, English lang po yan ng talipapa. So importante ngayon sa panahon ng COVID, alam natin ng ECQ, di ba? Napaka-importante ng mga talipapa, mga rolling stores. So we have to partner with LGUs to create more rolling stores, more of these small markets para mas maging accessible para sa mga kababayan natin. Then of course, kailangan i-high-tech din natin ng konti. No? And we have to level it up by not only building more talipapa, more retail outlets, more rolling stores, but also yung delivery. So there's a lot of opportunity for delivery service providers to come in. At siguro kung kayo ay negosyante, isa rin ito sa mga dapat tingnan natin. No? And government should be more open for the entry of more players dito sa delivery services sector. And of course, there's also a new thing now called personal assistance services. So yung mga pabili or mga pasabay, these personal shopping assistants is also something na might become a trend also in the near future. Next. Cashless. So ngayon, hindi na rin uso ang cash kasi maraming takot sa cash ngayon kasi exchanging cash, baka may bacteria, baka may virus yung cash, magkahawaan. No? So yung the way the way of payments now will have to change. And I think this is the time where we must concentrate on being a cashless society and makakatulong dito sa health protocols. No? So government is now focusing on investing in digital infrastructure, implementing cybersecurity measures in light of going cashless. No? So even yung ating Philippine national ID, ang ambition po natin is yung national ID natin, dapat may tie-up na rin yun sa mga digital payment systems natin like PayMaya, GCash, all of these things. No? So hindi lang dapat siya ID card, but the future of the national ID is for everyone who has a national ID to use it as a debit card or to use it as a cashless payment system or tie it up with a cashless payment system. So yan ang future ng ating national ID. Next. Sa transport and logistics, gaya ng sabi ko, they'll really take a hit. So importante, dahil sa reduced load factor, I think the push now is with reduced load factor, how to make transportation more efficient. Okay? And we need to use digital technology and other technologies to make it more efficient. So the use of paperless transactions and ensuring na hindi nasisira yung supply chain, these are things na binabantayan ng gobyerno. Even things like electronically filling out a health declaration form sa airports and seaports. Of course, temperature checks, queue markings, wearing of masks, all of these things will be the norm in the transportation sector. But also, baka yung contract-based provision ng transportation services might be the new norm. Meaning to say, hindi ka pwedeng sumakay kung hindi ka nagkipag-transaction online. So these might be something na hindi natin makikita natin not only in the airline industry, not only in the shipping or the maritime industry, but even in the land transportation industry, no? Contract-based provision of public transportation services. Then of course, firms now, we encourage them to provide shuttle services for their employees. So magandang negosyo din yan. Yung nagpo-provide ka ng shuttle services para sa iba't ibang mga kumpanya. Yung customs, if there's anybody in who plan to go to customs, we have, kailangan high-tech na rin yung customs natin. Hindi na pwede yung low-tech na customs na kasanayan na natin. So even customs now is upgrading their capabilities, their IT, their technologies to keep up, no, with this and to adjust to the new normal. So yung system of tracking and tracing of shipments dapat automated na yan. And of course, if kung negosyante kayo, siguro ang isang magandang negosyo din yung warehousing, cold storage facilities might also be a good business to enter into. Then like I said, paperless transactions will be a new norm dito sa customs. Next, if you plan to be in the social and health development industry, these are things na pinupush din ng gobyerno, no? Sa health and nutrition, I think the new normal or the focus now will be integrated health data management system. So if you're into management information system, I think magiging mataas din ang demand para sa inyo. Kasi even among hospitals, among health facilities, among those in the health sector, I think ang importante ngayon is dapat integrated na ang kanilang health management system. From tracking patients, from identifying patients, to tracking patients, to linking them, to referring them, and integrating all of the testings that they've done to monitor them. And not only in terms of patients, but also in terms of equipment, medicines, even as far as blood samples are concerned. So kailangan maganda yung integrated information and management system ng ating mga hospitals. So that is something that might be of interest to you. And then of course, in terms of increasing the capacity of our facilities, alam na po natin na pinupush natin ang more isolation rooms, critical care beds, quarantine facilities. Then we have to improve epidemiological and surveillance capacities. And that goes not only the national level, but even down to the provincial and municipal level. So that's also something na pwede niyong tingnan sa mga rural areas, no? Especially mga points of entry, mga borders between mga bayan, mga borders nila, or between provinces, and even LGUs na strategic LGUs or LGUs na medyo in a strategic location. And then of course, human resources for health would be very important. So whether or not you're a health personnel yourself or you're into the business of deployment of health workers, that will be something na maging mataas na rin ang demand for that. As far as PhilHealth is concerned, I think policy right now, or the push right now of government, is to make PhilHealth more inclusive with more emerging and re-emerging diseases out there. And I think mental health, what COVID has taught us is dapat di rin pabayaan ng mental health. So in terms of coverage ng PhilHealth, baka even coverage in terms of taking care of the mental health of patients is something na pwedeng makover na rin ng PhilHealth in the near future, no? If you're into information and communications, if that is your field, expect na there will be a lot of push for educational campaigns, for public health, and even risk communication. So ito na yung everybody wants to know what about health, how to take care of themselves, effective communications of the do's and don'ts. If nasa communication sector po kayo, isa rin yan sa dapat nating tingnan, no? And telehealth also. Telehealth system, yung calling a doctor, wala na yung face-to-face. That's something that we're also expecting to progress. And proper nutrition, no? So kung nutritionist kayo or you're in the field of nutrition, expect na maging mataas din ang demand for nutritionists, no? Because people are now looking more to eating properly, getting the proper nutrition para hindi magkasakit. All right, ilan na lang. If you're into social protection, social worker, if that's something you're looking at, a career for being a social worker or in social protection, alam naman po natin because of COVID-19, naging mataas ang demand for the delivery of social services, especially sa mga vulnerable groups like the poor, women, children, elderly, persons with disabilities, IPs. So maging maganda rin siguro yung push for more social protection for these different sectors, including social insurance, no? And we perhaps might see an increasing trend more in, although bumababa yung crime rate natin, but because of this pandemic, there might be an increase. You might see increases of violence against vulnerable sectors, no? So when I talk about that, I talk about even violence in terms of discrimination, no? So may nakita tayong mga trend na ganyan, no? Discrimination against vulnerable sectors. So right now, part of our policies and programs is the Philippine PhilSys ID system linking to digital payment systems, and yung pagbe-build up natin ng mga listahan, national household targeting system, yung listahanan, yung community-based monitoring ng sino yung vulnerable sectors, including sa agriculture, no, sa rural areas, kasi mga farmers natin and fishermen belong also to the vulnerable sector. So yung building up of the registry of the system ng government as far as sino yung poorest of the poor, mga marginalized, this is also something that government is also focusing into. And not to mention mga social insurance like SSS and GSIS. So I think because magkaroon ng demand for more of these social insurance, we expect SSS and GSIS to be hiring more people as well. Also, there is a push for more promoting of more savings mobilization, no? Kasi nakita natin because of COVID-19, kung wala kang savings, talo ka. So there might be governments pushing more of our people to save for the rainy day. All right. Next slide. Sa education, like I said, online learning will now become the new norm. Flexible learning, like an open high school, alternative delivery modes of learning, even satellite schools, yung pagbibigay ng mga learning materials via email or via actual delivery might be something that schools or those in the education sector might be looking into. Kami sa gobyerno, we are having DepEd partner with the ICT to create and maintain better learning management platforms, no? So that's also something that we're pushing very hard. Alam natin yung challenges ng DepEd. Not everybody has an internet, especially mga poor and marginalized. So we'll have to make do with a lot of other learning platforms like TV and radio, and thus blended learning ang magiging new norm natin with the Department of Education. But also don't forget na meron din tayong adult learning, no? So expect to see a lot of open online courses, especially for those who want to further their education. And I think schools have to adopt a flexible training arrangements, no, for them to continue to be relevant. And I think more investment, especially the private sector, will be given to new e-learning platforms. And I think even FEU is doing that. So next slide. Challenged by certain realities about unemployment and underemployment. I think that's the bad news na magkakaroon talaga ng hit ang ating unemployment and underemployment numbers. But like I said, there are areas of opportunities, and I think companies now have to adjust. No, instead of firing people, I think, or letting go of people, I think they must adopt more of the telecommuting or alternative work arrangements with their employees. And I see that there might be an increased demand for employees who are willing to take more precarious tasks, mas medyo challenging or dangerous tasks. There will always be a need for employees na matatapang. So I think with this coronavirus happening, there might be an emergence of new um, occupational hazards, and that's why binabantayan ng gobyerno that we put the policies in place to guard employees against these new occupational hazards that might happen in the workplace. So what are we doing to help affected workers now that I said na tatamaan yung unemployment and underemployment numbers natin? Alam na po natin, meron tayong mga wage subsidy programs. We're looking into increasing unemployment benefits, especially sa SSS. We are asking DOLE to upgrade their PhilJobsNet and highlight online job vacancies and home-based job vacancies. We are pushing TESDA to provide massive open online courses, provide more mobile training laboratories. And I think we're really going to push the private sector to adopt more telecommuting and other alternative work arrangements, but not only the private sector, kahit sa public sector, kahit kami sa gobyerno, will have to adjust as well. And of course, we must revisit the provisions on hazard pay for workers. No. So next slide. This just goes to show that even the Congress right now, they're coming up with measures, filing bills on proposed legislation on new normal for workplace and public safety, especially sa mga workspaces natin. So Congress, well, tingnan na lang natin what will happen with those proposed bills in Congress. But just to mention that even Congress, even LGUs, everybody's adjusting to the new norm. Next slide. So as I close, siguro I close by saying that, well, June 1 has happened, and alam niyo naman na with June 1 came the opening up of most of our provinces, even Metro Manila, to a less restrictive community quarantine. Karamihan sa mga probinsya ngayon ay nasa modified GCQ or MGCQ na. Tayo po dito sa Metro Manila, sa NCR, at ang mga magkalapit na regions 3 and regions 4A ay nasa GCQ. Or general community quarantine na. So it's been how many months since March noong unang inimpose ang ECQ over the entire island of Luzon, and mula noong March at ngayon na nasa GCQ na tayo, marami tayong nakita mga pangangailangan sa iba't ibang sektor, sa iba't ibang larangan ng ekonomiya. So, habang kayo po na mga estudyante ay gagraduate na, malapit nang graduate, siguro ang message ko lang is do not be discouraged by the negative news that tell you na maraming mawawalan ng trabaho or mahirap maghanap ng trabaho ngayong panahon ng COVID. I think you must always look at the silver lining and always look for opportunities, even in the face of itong mga hardships at itong challenges ng COVID-19. At dapat ang isipin nyo lagi is even with a crisis, there comes opportunities. So, yung nag-ECQ tayo at ngayon na nag-GCQ tayo, siguro nakita na ninyo yung iba't ibang mga pangangailangan, yung iba't ibang mga gaps. Ano yung mga gaps na meron, ano yung mga adjustments na kailangan. And siguro the trick is to find your place and hopefully put yourself in a position to fill in those gaps and find your relevance in this new workplace environment or the new normal as we call it. So wag mawalan ng pag-asa. Maraming pagkakataon ang meron dyan at kung hindi man yung job vacancies at hindi man kayo swertein sa job vacancies, there are also a lot of opportunities for you to also build your own business. No? So, ganun lang yan. Adjust lang and try to find your place of relevance in this new normal. At I wish you all of the luck. And I know that as graduates of FEU, your school has prepared you well to face whatever challenges may come your way. So God bless you all. Good luck and maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much, Secretary Nograles. That talk was truly insightful. We also would like to thank you for joining us this afternoon. Our students have some questions for you, and we will be hearing from you again in a short while during our Q&A session, which is happening right now. So I'll be reading some questions that our students sent earlier, but we only have until 5:30, so I had to filter the questions that are maybe the most relevant to our topics. So this question is for both Secretary Nograles and Mr. Dennis Supetran. Could you advise if it's a good decision to, whether or not it's a good decision to apply for a job immediately or join the workforce immediately, or is it a better idea to rest for a while all these things are happening? Secretary Nograles, you may speak first. You are on mute, Secretary. Secretary, yes. All right. Yes, go ahead, please.
Don't delay. I think you should take advantage right now. Gaya ng sabi ko, maraming opportunities dyan. At marami sa mga kumpanya ang naghahanap ngayon ng mga bata. Lalong-lalo na kasi ang thinking ng maraming companies is ang mga bata mas aggressive, mas matapang, at mas kabisado ang digital age, ang digital technology. So there's always that there's always that bias na even ako myself, tanong mo ako, maghanap ako ng mas bata sa akin dahil ang assumption ko yung mas bata sa akin mas marunong sa internet, mas marunong sa digital, sa social media, sa mga things like that. And lalo na ngayon na online na dahil sa COVID, maraming hinahanap ng mga mas younger, the younger workers right now.
All right, thank you, Secretary. As Mr. Supetran.
All right, thank you. First of all, I just wanted to also say thank you so much for, Secretary Nograles' comments and also more importantly, the information. So, na-miss ko na din yung mga briefings that you had before. So, that was part of my daily, routine. Right. One of the things some of the questions I also started na rin responding to, but to echo Secretary Nograles' comments earlier, and this is a personal experience of mine as well. When you graduate, or even just before you graduate, you can already begin to look for those employment opportunities. Even in the absence of that, pwede kayong mag-join kasi yung mga professional organizations. Yung mga professional organizations in your industry, you can check yung PRC sites for yung mga professional organizations. A lot of them already provide whether it's actual internship opportunities with companies. So that's again another way that you can get those opportunities to get into companies. Aside from those internship programs, some professional organizations also provide, technical training or online learning. Eh. So even while hindi ka pa employed, gamitin mo yung oras na yon so that you can build yung expertise mo. Don't be idle. And for example, in my case, when I graduated from Ateneo Denon from college, I didn't go into the workforce right away, but I did go into volunteer. So I was a JVP
Mm.
volunteer for a year. That, even though from an industry perspective, was not related to what I would eventually do in the private sector, yung mga values kasi, yung work experiences, yun yung talagang it provides you a good basis. Now more than ever, with a lot of yung challenges natin socially, from a government perspective, from a private sector perspective, we have a lot of those gaps also being stepped up to by non-profit organizations. So again, join those non-profit organizations because the experience, yung contacts, yung network, like what Secretary Nograles mentioned earlier, those will serve you well in the years to come.
All right. Thank you, Mr. There is another question here. If I wish, I think it was posted here on our chat box, but for everybody's information, and I also would like to dovetail the question. So, if I wish to join Ernst and Young, what attributes or traits should I have? And my follow-up question to that is, do you have extra expectations or other expectations from the employees, given that we are transitioning to a virtual work? Mr. Supetran, yes, you may answer the
All right.
question.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Latosa. So I actually responded to that dun sa Q&A
Yeah.
portion. More and more companies nowadays, and even actually from a government perspective, don't just look for yung job fit. Eh. Kasi when you say job fit, ito yung skills mo, ito yung experience mo. But more important to that, and what becomes critical, like our experience, what really helped us be successful even through yung ACQ and subsequent shift to GCQ, and what else is waiting for us forward, is really mindset and attitude. That's why expect nyo when you interview, whether it's you take the licensure exam to go work in government or in the private sector. Don't just look at what you can do, but also look at ano yung attitude, ano yung mga ethics that you're bringing into these companies. So more and more companies are also looking for people that are a good culture fit. Kasi yung skills, knowledge, matuturo mo yan over time. But attitude, behavior, those can only be built from a lifetime experience.
All right. Uh, is it possible, Mr. Supetran, that Ernst and Young, or maybe opinion about companies would be hiring non-graduate students, those who were not able to finish their school because of financial difficulties? Yeah.
All right. So I think, again, this is where professional organizations really help out a lot. Eh. Let me just share one quick example. So EY has a global program called EY Ripples. So it's not just yung social responsibility or corporate social responsibility program, but what we look at is ano yung mga programs that will help us from a business perspective, but also give back to the community. So what we actually did, and if people remember, diba, Marawi had almost a 2-month siege that they went through, where a large part of the city itself and even yung supporting structures, schools, industries, were pretty much leveled by yung fighting. So what EYGPS Philippines did is we actually got in touch with Marawi State University, and we actually sponsored to have a group of their, I think this was yung mga accounting graduates, to fly up to Manila. We also sponsored yung board and lodging nila, and that was part of their internship program, right? And now from there, we actually received that one of the participants from that EY Ripples program was yung top graduate from Marawi in terms of
Wow.
yung licensure. So again, look for those companies, look for those nonprofit organizations that sponsor that type of environment. Like in my previous experience in BPO, we did hire people that had not yet completed university education.
Mhm.
That was a specific instance. I actually had a team member that finished their college degree, right? But again, some companies might be far and few in between. We still see a lot of the usual standard requiring university graduates.
All right. Thank you very much for all your questions. I'm afraid we have run out of time. All right. So moving on to recap, our speakers emphasized on the new normal that all of us must embrace. They provided us with perspectives both from the government and the private sectors. The new normal means change from the things we have been accustomed to doing. Tourism, travel, and production industries would definitely be hard hit. Mass gatherings will be constrained heavily. Transportation services will be modified, but small businesses and digital technologies are thriving. The education sector would also see a paradigm shift to virtual learning. We are now transitioning to a cashless and paperless society. These changes pose threats as well as opportunities. The new normal also entails half the workforce will be done face to face, while the other half is done online in the comfort of your homes. The new normal also means that some jobs have closed, but the good news is that new jobs and new roles have opened up. So don't despair. This is an opportunity for everyone to explore the new normal in job hunting. Part of the new normal also is the shift to the digital setup of our workplaces, a new setup that demands flexibility and adaptability. Because the new normal seems to be staying here for quite some time, job hunters should hone your skills to fit in and should gather as much experience as you can, maybe without being too picky with the available job roles, and hold on to those values that you possess because these values will definitely help you thrive in the new normal. It may take some time before we go back to the old normal, so arm yourselves with the knowledge, skills, and values you will need when we shift back. Our world won't stop amidst the pandemic, so it is essential that you find your niche amidst the new normal. There you have it. That concludes our pep talk for today. On behalf of the FEU Career and Placement Office, we would like to thank our distinguished speakers, Secretary Karlo Nograles and Mr. Dennis Supetran. Thank you for your precious time, sirs. And also to our students, faculty members, and employees for joining us. We do hope that you have learned a lot from this webinar. I hope you join us next week for another Pep Talk webinar. Our topic will be Career Preparation 101, Successfully Finding a Career in the Digital Landscape. As we end, may we invite everyone to join us in the singing of the FEU hymn.